Ultimately, you have X amount of meetings that you have to book a month, right? And that's your goal and that's what you're after. But motive is transparent. That's what I love to say is, when that salesman that has an agenda is approaching you, you can see it. But when you truly make it about them, they become receptive to having a conversation with you and ultimately what you might be able to help them with.
Welcome back to the Thoughts on Selling podcast. Today it is my absolute pleasure to have Tom Kiernan join me for a conversation on all things sales enablement. Tom, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Lee Levitt, for having me. What an honor and a privilege it is. After meeting together at the sales conference and competition at Bryant University, watching you perform, what can I say? It's my honor and privilege to be on your podcast.
Oh, cut it out, Tom, and I'll send you a check. Don't tell my rabbi this, but I can be quite a ham.
I'll tell my priest not to tell your rabbi. How's that?
Okay. Rabbi Dave knows only too well.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of jokes, throughout that process.
There sure is. So here's the first question, Tom, and many other people have struggled to answer this question. I think you're uniquely positioned to answer it. Who is Tom Kiernan?
Who is Tom Kiernan? Well, Tom Kiernan is definitely a dad and a husband, and he's also a brother and son. He is a cousin. He is definitely an exercise enthusiast. He loves to run.
Towards or from? Or just for the hell of it?
Always running from something and then always towards something as well. Yeah, for sure. I really think of myself as
a human being in relation to others.
Yeah, what matters most in life, which is the people that matter most to me.
That's awesome. And you've got some background in business. If I remember correctly, I think you know how to spell sales enablement. Many people spell it as TRAINING. Others spell it as CONTENT. But you know what sales enablement really is because you've been there, you've done that.
Yeah, I love that. I love you spelled out the T word, right? Because we don't like to say it out loud, do we? Yeah. Because it just while it's certainly an important, part of what I love to call the enablement process, it is simply just a part of it, right? And so much that goes into, I'd like to say that I pioneered the process at a place called Schneider Electric. And it was really the evolution of taking sales and the T word and really figuring out and driving a process that captured the inputs that help sales organizations be more efficient and effective at what they do day in and day out. And I think process was beaten into me, Lee, at a place called American Power Conversion, one of my favorite places on the planet to work. And everybody at APC had a copy of the Toyota Way on their desk. And if you didn't, there was a guy named Roger Dowdell, who was the CEO at the time, would wonder why, your copy of the Toyota Way wasn't on your desk. He'd come around and say, where is it? And he was big into global process and the importance of it.
And APC ran the wave of the channel business with the PC business in the 80s and 90s, all largely indirect. APC was largely direct, if not completely direct as well.
Yeah, through the channel. Yeah, literally running revenue through the channel and, following like the Cisco's, the EMCs, Dells of the world, just like chasing them in the channel and their best practice. And APC built an amazing business too, where it was bought by Schneider Electric in 2008 for, I think, is $7 billion it was. And it was probably the bargain of the century.
You and I probably passed in the hallway doing training and enablement at Aero Electronics in Woburn.
Yeah.
Years and years ago. Yeah, the rule that I followed, I was at TI at the time, if I remember correctly. The rule was we would hand the pizzas over at 5 and the beer wouldn't get handed over till 5:30. So there was that magic 35-minute window to get their attention and help them know more about our products.
Right. Yeah. And it was going, like it was, selling it like hotcakes. It was just crazy. But, as APC as a brand has continued to evolve and inside of Schneider Electric, you still see it everywhere. So it's the business that they do in the data center space today is just incredible.
Well, not that I'm running a data center here at Seller Group Worldwide, but there are 3 APC products within my reach right now.
Yeah, maybe like a Pro 8, maybe some sort of backups.
600s and 800s, yeah, APC back, yeah, those things. One for my NAS and another for the TV and some of the other stuff. So we're getting off track here. This podcast sponsored by American Power Products, Schneider Electronics. Get your transformers here. You know, there's things that you save money on, and there are things that you spend for the comfort of, yeah, this thing works, and I can get replacement parts if I need it, and it's not going to fail me in the first lightning strike.
Right. Yeah, that was one of our biggest challenges was the product was made so well. Yeah, I remember selling it. I sold, for APC before I stepped into any sort of sales enablement game in the Schneider world and learned, so much about sales and the motion of selling to channel. But we would come across products that were, 10, 15 years old. It was exceptional. I think a lesson in, success of a company is how well those products were made and are made.
How long they last, how long people keep them, and whether they're serviceable. Like today, I can order a branded battery for an APC product in the same way that my 15-year-old Landis treadmill, I can have a third-party rep come out and install new Landis pieces on it because they support their stuff, for the long run. For the long run. That's my son's podcast.
Yeah. Can we just talk about that quick?
No, not quick. No, we're going to take a deep dive into running. So go ahead, Tom.
You're right. But, it's my favorite new podcast. And so, for the long run, Jonathan Levitt out of Colorado, and he's Boulder, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's brilliant. It's awesome. So for Lee Levitt's audience, it is people who love to run and love to learn about it and what it does for people in their lives. It's brilliant. It's really great.
And he recently launched a second podcast giving a view behind the industry perspective, what goes on to get brands out into the community. And so a lot of people think that Jonathan has gotten his, speaking of fathers and sons and brothers and all that stuff, Jonathan got his entrepreneurial bent for me. I completely stole the format of this podcast from his For the Long Run because he launched it by accident, sitting at a trailhead, chatting with a key influencer and said, "Hey, you mind if I record this conversation?" I was a little bit more purposeful on that, but the rules are the same. It's a conversation between two friends over a beverage or similar, and it's okay to disagree, and dogs are welcome.
Mine's not with me now, but I'll bring her in maybe if things get really slow, like talking about uninterruptible power supply from APC.
I don't know. If we're done talking about transformers, let's talk about reticular activation. You and I were just talking about the role of BDR and how the use of specific words and phrases can catch people's attention. So reticular activation, Tom, want to tell me what that is again?
Yeah, I mean, I love to just describe it as, to give the example of when you're at the airport and you've made it through security, you're rushing to get to the gate and there's all sorts of crazy, things going around you. And there's people putting their shoes on and, there's beeping carts and people coming in and out of the restaurants and everything going on. And all of a sudden over the PA system, you think you hear, and it stops you cold, right? And it stops you to think, what did I do? Did I leave a phone? Am I late for my gate? Should I be at a different gate? Is somebody trying to reach me because, there's an emergency? It just stops you. That is, in a sense, your reticular activating system working. Every human being has it. And, it's something I learned from another A company, talk about the APC, another A company, awesome company that I have worked with and over the years, a company called Aslan Training. And it's part of their other-centered selling methodology that I've loved and practiced, other-centered selling.
Wait. I'm going to stop you and I want to reparse that methodology. It's other-centered selling. It means being centered on the other because the purpose of selling is not selling. The purpose of selling is buying.
The purpose of selling is buying. It's interesting because, Aslan has really, as they continue to, 25 years, Fortune 100 companies all the way to, very small companies in many, many different industries. And they basically are saying in their methodology, stop selling.
Well, I do have to give credit to Jeff Lipsius, who first used that phrase with me. He was on my podcast about a year ago. He's a trainer, an author, sales trainer, and author. He says the purpose of selling is not selling, right? If our goal was to sell stuff, we would all fail. The ultimate purpose is for people to acquire things or services so that they can put them to work to improve their business situation or achieve their results. If it's just pure consumption for consumption's sake, businesses ain't going to do it.
That's right. So the reticular activating system and other centered, right? To figure out, and we were talking about, the SDR, the BDR role, and it's one of the hardest things. You talk to any salesperson today, it's about, really getting in touch with somebody and actually having a human interaction with somebody. And how do you capture their attention with all the noise that's going on? And reticular activating system is an other centered way of doing it, because you're focused on something that will make that person stop with all the noise that's going on, whether it's their in-mail box, it's the cell phone ringing, whatever it is, something that makes them stop and think, maybe this is something that I should connect to. And it's something I should pay attention to. And we all pay attention to stuff that's about us, right? Not about what you're trying to sell or you're some sort of feature or benefit or anything like that, right? I'm going to stop if it's about something about me. I get it all the time as a global sales enablement practitioner, right? You get hundreds of people trying to, especially in this AI world, of trying to sell you their platforms, their stuff, right? And I really do reward the people that take the time to find something that they think might quiet the noise for me.
As you were talking, I thought of two reticular activations that are memorable for me. The first, my wife and I were traveling back from London, and we were at Heathrow in one of the club lounges. This was in the early days of dating myself. Now, this was in the early days of mobile email, right? We actually connected a phone line to our computer and downloaded our email. In the faint corners of my awareness, I hear this last call for American Airlines, blah, 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 to Boston Logan Airport. It's like, oh, shit.
Right. Right.
And we've got stuff spread all over. We just completely lost track of time. Maybe it was a time zone thing. Maybe we were exhausted from spending 5 days in the Cotswolds. I don't remember. But that was one. The other reticular activation that I can remember was I was having a conversation with a guy from Motorola and about the service that I was running at IDC. And he made an offhand comment. Some of the other clients that I've talked to have said good things about the program. And my head swiveled around. It's like, there's no client list published, right? This person has undertaken an effort to not only figure out who other clients are of my program and had conversations with it. They were all senior level sales operations folks. And it's a fairly close-knit community. Now they're all RevOps, or half of them are retired, but they're all RevOps. And when he said he had talked to them, my next comment was, I'm going to be in Schaumburg next week. What works for you? If he had done that amount of effort to figure out if my offer was a good fit for him, I was going to spend some company money and get on a plane and get in front of him face to face. But it was the comment that he made that got my attention. And so I have a coaching client who asked two VPs at a mutual insurance company, by the way, before we get into our meeting, I noticed the two of you have spent a long time at this company. What keeps you here? And 20 minutes later, they finished that part of the conversation. When you catch someone's attention with something they value, that's a deposit in the relationship bank account, and it can lead to huge benefit.
Yeah, you're right. The question is all about them. That's it. Yeah. I think that's the fun part about working with younger sales people, or people that are stepping into sales as a career, right? And is really teaching that, or getting them to realize the benefit of what it means to be other-centered. Ultimately, you have X amount of meetings that you have to book a month, right? And that's your goal, and that's what you're after. But motive is transparent. That's what I love to say is, when that salesman that has an agenda is approaching you, you can see it. But when you truly make it about them, they become receptive to having a conversation with you and ultimately what you might be able to help them with.
Some salespeople are in it for the short term, right? You'll hear them say at the end of the quarter, I'm going to burn it down. I'm going to take every dollar off the table. They are looking to maximize their own income, their own payout. And that's okay. This is a coin-operated environment. And then there are others, and I just talked with a salesperson today who said, I can take this particular relationship one way, and this is how much I'll make on this transaction. It's a $3.5 million transaction. Or I can recommend to the customer that they go this way, and I'll lose $100,000 in income this year as a result. And it's the right thing for the customer to do. And the fact that they were even in the conversation makes me hopeful. And the fact that I think they decided make that longer term investment and say to the customer, this is the right thing to do, right? Those things pay back with interest.
Always. Yeah, they really do.
I was fortunate to be in a place where I heard that thought process happen, where I saw that thought process happen, because again, it gives me hope for the future. That people aren't just coin operated. That I say, when you walk into a room as a salesperson, your intent is written right across your forehead. If your intent is to jam product down someone's throat and to maximize your own takeaway, they know that.
No doubt. Motive is transparent. I mean, it's there. It's written right up on that yellow sticky that, slapped up onto your forehead, right? It is absolutely there. You say, oh, well, then you just be other-centered, right? That's easy. All you have to do is other-centered. But that's not human nature. It's just not, right? We're survival creatures. We are, we wake up in the morning, your focus is on you, me. What do I have to do today, right? It is absolutely something that has to be practiced to be other-centered.
And you and I were talking earlier about onboarding and enabling the salespeople who are just entering the profession, the BDRs and inside salespeople. It gives me great joy to walk in front of a group of red-shirted new hires that, 2 months ago had been at senior week. They don't know that a computer can be larger than the one in their pocket. I have two parts to that conversation, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. The first is, there's a difference between being an amateur and a professional. An amateur just goes out on weekends and does shit. That's not good sales. A professional practices their craft, right? I won't use the Malcolm Gladwell metrics because not everyone believes it, but Tiger Woods might swing his driver 5,000 times before he steps up to knock one down the fairway. And the second piece is that I always share, we may be working at a large Fortune 100 company. Your call to the CFO might be of the first brand touch they've ever had from this organization. It matters. What you say, how you conduct yourself, how you follow up, all that matters. You're creating the brand experience in many cases for companies that might be customers for the next 10 years. Or never become customers. And it's on your shoulders, young'uns.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'll tell you, Lee, it's fascinating because, we're in this age of, this whole AI, and does it replace the role? You can't go more than a foot on LinkedIn, right, without seeing that debate, right, of it's not only the BDR, the SDR, it's across the board from a sales perspective. And that human element. And it's interesting because now it's also turned to the coaching, right? So now there's the AI coach, the bot that steps in and does the work of the sales manager. And this is what's fascinating to me is we're starting to step into, and some of the technologies I've seen there are phenomenal. Sell me this pen, Replicate Labs. I just took two companies from one side of the pond, one from the other. And as coaching goes in the profession and practice, there are so few organizations that literally really have a culture based on practice. And yet we thrive in, obviously you've got military and that's all they do. And then if you go to sports, you go to, entertainment, right? You can take the football analogy, but let's go to Hamilton, the play, and how much practice they do before they step in there, right? It's just amazing how little, and because so many few companies they don't have the process set for it, right?
If you don't have a defined process, there's nothing to practice.
No. And yet you've got a fantasy football team and you're going to watch football every Sunday and you're going to be like, but what happened the 6 days before that game went on? Well, practice, whether it's watching films or whether it's, Wednesday running through your plays in a live format or, whatever it is, right? It's 95% of what they do is practice.
Yeah. So here's something that may blow some people's minds. The best people in improv practice constantly. Now, the art of improvisation is doing things in the moment. And to be really good at doing things in the moment, You have to practice. And so being in the moment, some of my favorite selling and situations, no matter how they turned out, I remember blurting out stuff, saying things that I can't imagine where it came from. And that was the impact. So I was sitting next to a very senior person at Pfizer as part of the key account team calling on Pfizer. And all of the pillar reps went around and said, we sell middleware, we sell databases, we sell CRM, blah, blah, blah. And then this senior executive looked at me and said, so what do you do here? And I said, my job is to help you fix the problem of prescription adherence. And her jaw dropped. It's like, well, that's her problem. That represents a potential 50% boost of revenue to Pfizer, 50% to a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, it just came out of my mouth. I didn't practice that. But having the ability to be in the moment allows the salesperson or the spouse or the friend to not think about stuff, but come up with stuff. And this goes back to Tim Galloway and the inner game of tennis, where his perspective is, if you have to think about how to swing your racket, you've already missed. If you're just listening for the sound of the ball bounce and that's all you're paying attention to, you're going to get that ball back over the net.
Oh, God. Yeah, the golf analogy to it is the same. It's that what's the best swing is the one that I didn't think about it. I practiced to get there, right? I practiced to get there, but I just hit the ball and I hit it so flush and I hit it so well and I just didn't think about it.
Because your body knows what to do unless your head gets in the way. And it's the same thing in selling. Your heart and your gut know what to do unless in the moment you try to think about it. Now, ahead of time, you want to be building those neural paths. This is what I want to accomplish. And what if they ask this? And, what happens there? And practice.
And it's practice. And having coaches that can help you to, really to refine your craft, for sure. It's still today in this AI world and the cultures across all businesses and organizations, it continues to be a tremendous deficit.
So what do you attribute that to, Tom? Why is there such an organizational and industry-wide deficit in deliberate practice and time spent coaching?
Yeah. The feet on the street are ultimately coached by their manager, right? So that manager that is coaching the feet on the street, right? So that's what we're talking about when it comes to who's driving the practice. And I think while critical to have in that person, in that account executive, in that BDR, critical to have the desire to improve, right? And we can't teach desire. We can't do it. It's probably not even correct anymore to say Bill Belichick was the guy that, said you can't, about his players, you can't teach desire.
That seems to be a true statement now.
So you got the feet on the street being managed by these, by the coaches, and enablement, I think, is the partnership with that entity across the entire commercial team is so critical. And so therein lies the challenge of driving the practice, right, for those that have the desire. And that comes to because they answer to somebody who is always asking them for what's the number or what's the bottom line, what's happened, tell me what's happening in the deals.
What's the last action you took? What's the next action you're going to take?
Absolutely, right? Because they're being asked the same thing from above them.
They're not other-centered. They're preparing for their own rectocranial inversion.
Right, you bet. And the QBRs come in, and very rarely in the QBR that we talk about, hey, let's talk about the improvement of the capabilities of our commercial team across the board. Let's talk about where we are from a sales ready index to what we've done and how we've improved from a capability standpoint, skills and knowledge.
There are so few large organizations and virtually no smaller organizations that leverage the information and systems to actually scope that, to actually identify that. And some do it accidentally. And here's an example. Years ago, I surveyed a handful of larger companies asking, what's the single most important metric that you gather regarding your selling activities? And it's long enough ago now that I can mention the company. IBM said, it's the number of new opportunities put in the Salesforce on a weekly basis.
New opportunities, okay.
And I asked, why on earth is that your most important metric? And The response was, it's not because of the metric. It's because of the introspection on why it changes and what one team, one group, one region, one division versus another is doing to improve that metric. So it's the introspection of, we started doing things this way and our weekly metric went up by 5%, or we did this and it went that. So it wasn't actually the metric. It was the exploration of what was driving the metric and what different groups should do differently to improve their own. If there's one group leading, other groups can learn from that group. And so it was very much of a tip of the iceberg. It's like number of new opportunities. And then you look and you see there's a whole iceberg underneath the waterline there of the studying of what's going on to drive it. And I was fascinated by it. Their coaching happens as a result of that. Let's do things this way. Let's do things that way. Maybe let's practice. I think that you hit it squarely on the head, Tom. Everybody is so focused on the number. They're not concerned with what will help create that number, what will help improve that number. Let's spend so much time doing the reporting of the number that we don't do the work to create the number.
And what's interesting about that is you and I can agree to that till late in the afternoon, and we could go to the fridge and break out a beer and we could continue talking about it for sure. Ultimately in business, the number matters most. And so seat at the table is always a big challenge for your enablement process, right? And seat at the table happens when you have the number and incorporate the number into your process. It must be a part of your productivity and the measure. You just talked about, fill in the funnel, right? As a measure. Yes, absolutely. And then what do we do how do we get better at, so it's not garbage in, garbage out, right? Those types of things. Sitting at the table, you have to know the number. You have to know the numbers, right? However, again, we both agree that, if we focus on the capabilities, our numbers will certainly.
You bring up an important dichotomy there. The most important stakeholder, one of the 2 or 3 most important stakeholders at the table, doesn't give a shit about January 2nd. January 2nd does not exist for the sales leader. There is zero attribute of reality to anything with a 2026 date on it. And those of us in enablement, we're already working on the agenda for a kickoff in February. And we're already planning for the first half enablement workshops, right? And we know, and I've said this to people who have been horrified, you make an enablement investment today, you're going to see it pay off starting in 3 to 6 months. And the sales leader goes, then let's just go spend more money on T&E. Let's take our customers out more. Screw enablement. Let's spend more money on steaks and Malbec.
Sounds like a good investment to me.
Me too. So, having the seat at the table is absolutely critical to be able to espouse that perspective, because you've got me on my soapbox. One of the single most important levers an effective sales enablement initiative, or sales enablement initiative, I would say, is having a sales enablement charter and having an advisory team where everyone says what they need, but they don't necessarily decide. Right? The sales leader doesn't get to say, we're going to spend all of our budget on things that affect this quarter.
No, right. Because you're prioritizing on business objectives as opposed to who speaks the loudest.
And the sales leader usually speaks the loudest because they carry the number. Sure. And, from their perspective, if we don't make the number this quarter, I'm not going to be around next quarter. And the CFO should say, that's your problem, buddy, not the sales enablement leader's problem. It's cool stuff. I think we're in a strong alignment on how to run good enablement, because good enablement is all about building people and building skills and building attitudes, not just building product awareness or day-to-day activities, day-to-day habits.
That, I don't know if you call it sponsorship, Lee, or, the buy-in. And I always found in organizations and working with other sales enablement leaders, and that the people that struggle are those that don't have that senior executive buy-in. Right? If you're working some SaaS organization and you're not connected to the chief revenue officer of that organization and have a partnership with them, you're going to struggle to drive effectiveness in the programs that will hopefully drive revenue for the organization.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not just revenue, it's also HR. I was in a situation where a company I was working for, a global organization, a household name, we had acquired a company in the analytics space, and we were running that organization as a separate business. And I heard a rumor in mid-December of 2021, I guess it was, that population, that company was going to be mainstreamed. And it was going to be mainstreamed as of January 1st. So 2 weeks. And I kind of heard it through the grapevine. And I went to my manager and I said, if we don't show that team some love, and we're talking about 750 people, if we don't show that team some love, we're going to lose 3/4 of the group. They were a boutique organization brought into a 100,000 person company. Can't remember exactly. It was about 100,000 people. Different portfolio, different comp, different territories, different managers, different rules of engagement, different systems, right? They would have all said, screw this, we're out. And all of the value of that acquisition, or much of the value of the acquisition, would have gone poof. So my manager said, what do you recommend? I said, we need to show them some love. And what love looks like is a boot camp to help them migrate from where they were to where they're going to be, and explain it all and address their concerns and talk with them about the rules of engagement, how they're going to work with the Gen Pop salespeople as opposed to how they had been overlays before. To his credit, my manager said, go. And 3 weeks later, we had a global boot camp run in North America and in Asia Pacific to do exactly that, to help mainstream those folks so that they would want to stay with this larger company and that they knew what they were going to be doing and how they were going to be doing. Because, as you know, uncertainty drives tune-out, right? They would have just quit it otherwise.
I think we went full circle right there. We went from for the long run, right, to go.
To boot camp.
And that's basically what you do when you go for the long run. You just go.
You go.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other thing you're going to do.
I love a T-shirt I got many years ago from the PenMass Challenge.
Oh, yeah. Love that. I love that. I've never done it.
The T-shirt says, essence is, you're committing to raising, I think today it's $6,500 or $7,000 to participate in the 2-day ride. And you give Billy Starr, founder of the PMC, your credit card, and you say, if I don't raise it, just charge my card.
Charge the rest.
Charge the balance. And so the T-shirt says, commit, you'll figure it out.
Yes, that's right.
And it's like taking a cold water plunge for the first time. Commit, jump in, right? You have no idea what it's going to be like. Or, you don't know what that boot camp is going to look like, but go figure it out.
No doubt. No doubt about it.
Well, Tom, we'll have to get you involved one way or another. I volunteer at the Mass Maritime Academy to help riders have a good day. And then I do the PMC unpaved ride in the fall in the Berkshires, which is just gorgeous.
Unpaved. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I try to stay on the feet as much as possible, but I do, the cycling is just, I know it's awesome. It really is. Yeah.
Welcome to Thoughts on Cycling.
For the long ride, right? I'm sure Jonathan has some sort of brother or sister broadcast. Yeah.
So, Tom, where can people find you?
People can find me certainly on LinkedIn for sure, right? They could also find me at lumpybones.com.
There's a story behind that. What's the story?
Well, I wrote children's book series called The Mad Dash, and the two characters are Lumpy and Bones. And it's one of the only BaaS companies that I know of in the world, books as a service. I distribute both my books on my website, lumpybones.com. And it's a 501c3. And the way it works is I get, companies, corporations, businesses to pay for the licensing of the books for classrooms, teachers, students. And so I can distribute the books to any classroom, to any school for free because the companies are making the donation to lumpybones.com. So it's a story about two best pals, and one of them finds out he has cancer, and they go on a journey to find the cure. It's an adventure full of a lot of humor and a lot of life lessons, and so it's one of my passions.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for your insights and your humor today.
Thank you for your insights. It's always great to be with you. You're awesome, and I really am. I'm such a big fan of yours, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Right back at you. Those of us that understand, one, the channels, and two, what enablement is and can be. There's only a few of us in the world, really.
And running,
right? Yeah, that Venn diagram of like 3 people. Yeah.
There's something right in the middle there for sure.
Exactly. Thanks, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Lee. Thank you very much.
Another deep dive into the topic of sales excellence and the performance mindset. If you found this conversation interesting, I would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with a coworker or two. And to explore this topic in more depth, send me a note via the contact form on podcast.thoughtsonselling.com or find some time for us to talk at meet.acellergroup.com. Thanks.